Oh man, we've got to know this one. The most deadliest urban legend to men. Toxic masculinity is the most deadly urban myth to men. Let me tell you the truth right here. Welcome to another episode of Men vs. Mediocrity. You found us. We are your #1 edutainment resource for men, by men, to support men on our journeys to this thing we call being a real man. Being that real man. Today we are talking about toxic masculinity, and it's important that we bring this particular topic up because if we're to understand who we are as a man and to fight mediocrity of being average men, we need to be comfortable in understanding at least what our identity is. David Banner is a perfect example of what society says toxic masculinity is. David Banner, when he gets angry as a man, it turns a toxic chemical reaction and turns him into this beast that is violent, out of control, and will ask. This is what society says toxic masculinity is. Think of the Hulk. Being angry is not a masculine trait. Anger is a trait of anyone who has lost self-control of their temper. Nothing ever that identifies us with being a man is never, ever, ever toxic. Men, we're designed to invest our time and some of our talents and passions and some, and our finances and our tangible money. We're designed as men to think about investing in those things for eternally and long term, and things that will last the test of time. Impactful businesses, ideas, relationships last beyond our lifetime. These are things that generationally men are designed to impact and invest in. Toxic masculinity will tell you the antonym of not investing your time in those things eternally, ahead of those things which may be enjoyment or for personal pleasure. Because a masculine trait is self-discipline. Men, think about where you spend your time. Where do you spend your money? When your talent, maybe you're a plumber. Are you helping your neighbor who can't afford to know the skill that you do, even though you work for a business? Just think about this, man. This is where we're going to be excellent. This is where we're going to fight mediocrity in this space. But here's what toxic masculinity will tell you. Men play too many video games. I'm out there rooting for the Saints, and I spent, 4 large on tickets, and I'm not able to pay for my family's bills. People will tell you this is masculine. People will say, I play toxic. They'll say toxic masculinity, the deadly of toxic masculinity, because he plays Red Dead Redemption 2 all day. And he's got 2 kids, and he doesn't help change the diapers because he's playing that or played the new God of War version. I recently retired from video games, but love video games. Nothing wrong with video games. But what is it coming ahead of, man? But we're accountable to our time. This is what makes us men. Time priorities, talent priorities, what we're doing with our money and how we act our money makes us a man. Men act when false evidence appears real. We act, we initiate, we move forward, we engage, we act when there's false evidence that appears real. And what's false evidence that appears real? Obviously, it's fear. A masculine trait is that man who acts when there's war, who acts when there's consequences, who initiates when it looks bad, who carries through when, who knows what's gonna happen, when, who goes in the tunnel that's full of zombies. Rick Grimes, it's a masculine trait for Rick Grimes to go into a scenario that doesn't look like he's gonna live to possibly save another person, to preserve humankind. Now that's one example that he did good. I'm not talking about what Rick Grimes did bad. So this is a masculine trait. This is why we love Maximus Decimus Aurelius. This is why we love, Martin Luther King. This is why we love, people like that, because they act in those moments. Toxic masculinity will make fun, and you'll see on sitcoms where people who are afraid, people who won't do things, people who won't do what they're called to do because they might be, afraid of what someone else is. Being afraid and being fearful is not a term of masculinity, man. What is acting and initiating in the midst of fear. Therefore, courageous. Courageous, this is a trait of a man. Masculine trait is that man who is responsible. Do you take care of yourself? Can you provide for yourself? Are you putting your best self forward? Are you investing in yourself? Are you responsible for yourself? Are you responsible for others? Men, our role in society today is not just to be responsible for us, it's to be responsible for others. We have several roles in our lives that we have. Maybe you're a father, a brother, an uncle, a coach. Maybe you're a business owner or a leader, or maybe you're a volunteer. Maybe you're an adoptive foster parent. I don't know what your role is, but we have several roles that are identified with males that make us men, and that means that we're responsible for others. Those roles are identified with the man's relationship to others. For example, being a father, this is a masculine trait, okay? That father means that we are the parent of another human being and we're responsible for that relationship. Toxic masculinity will even be like dad bods, or even the antonym of people trying to work out too much, which is like taking care of yourself on steroids. Like, that's not masculine either, and not taking care of yourself isn't masculine. But toxic masculinity will tell you it's either of those two in the scale. And toxic masculinity is you just need to take care of yourself and have some basic level of self-image for you to be the best that you can be. Men, we're designed to initiate. I think this is one of the biggest identifications that a man can have, is initiating. And it doesn't have to do with being afraid, but we need to act when we're afraid. We need to be responsible, but we need to initiate. Men are designed to create, build, initiate, design, begin, start, create. This is an inherent core of being a man. Toxic masculinity has that all twisted up, and they use both ends of the scale to identify us as manhood, when one of them is being responsible for self, which is self-discipline, where when we talk about initiate, this is where men get identified with, being the aggressor towards women, or raping or taking a woman physically, or groping a woman. This part of initiation. This is not self-discipline. However, men, we are designed to approach. We are not, passivity is poisonous, but this is the scale differential that they'll tell us, that either we're going to be aggressive to a woman, which ends in toxicity, or we're going to be passive, which ends in toxicity. That's not right. We need to understand, with self-discipline, this is our identification. And don't get it twisted on toxic masculinity when they talk about aggression, rape, beating. These are things that are derived from initiation, starting, begin, creating, building, etc. But these aren't things that define us. And don't get it twisted by toxic masculinity. So men, hopefully now we understand how we identify ourselves as men and how we do not identify ourselves as men, and why toxic masculinity is a deadly myth if we're to believe those characteristics defined as toxic masculinity are who we are as men, because they're not. You know, all idioms and oxymorons have an agenda underlying in them. For example, like a piece of cake or small crowd, basic bitch, Walking Dead, or hell, even Apple uses it, like no phone like iPhone. It's like it's no phone like phone, but yet iPhone. And then what a Samsung says something like, oh, more than you need until you need it. These are idioms or oxymorons that have an agenda in place, and toxic masculinity is no different. If we believe in this particular traits identified with being a man, oh, we will remain mediocre. Let me know where you think violence fits. I don't think it's a trait of mankind, but it is our responsibility, it is our space. Of course, we've been murderers, killers, disproportionately to our female counterparts. Let me know what you think about violence below. But until the next time, men, hopefully you understand toxic masculinity and why it is a deadly myth if we associate ourselves with some of these things. And hopefully today you've learned a few qualities that make us a man. And until the next time, this is your host, Fred3 from MVM. Let me know in the comments below if you hated it. Give me a thumbs down. Tell me why. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up.